Alrighty, we've received some new changes on the beta. Currently in the pre-patch, Arm's performing better than Fury, especially without the Slayer talents. But when we're looking at the beta stuff, they've actually started kicking the balance, like balancing things, bit into high gear. You can see tons and tons of class changes all the way throughout. But we, obviously, are focused on Warrior. So, first and foremost, shield slam damage increased by 8%. Who cares? Um, it's whatever. They're buffing prot a decent amount. Let's look at the hero talent changes. Tides of Battle increases the damage of revenge by 10% per stack. By damage of revenge by 10% per stack. So this is just for revenge. Practice strikes increase damage by mortal strike by 15 was 20, so a nerf on that. I believe that is here. Let's look at the calculator itself. I can just swap it here. I think practice, yeah. So this nerfs mortal strike to 15 and cleave still at 20. Mountain of muscles and scars nerfed by 4% to 4% from 5. So another nerf on top of it. This used to be this used to be 2.5, 2.5, and then it went to 5, and now it's to 4. So they're just tuning it slightly. And for protection, specifically, Dominance of the Colossus increased damage dealt to targets up to 20%. Which one is Dominance of the Colossus? Oh. Oh, this just makes your Demolish bigger. Okay. So it's buffing the prot side of Colossus. Mountain Thane, Thunderblast damage nerfed, Lightning Strike damage increased, so single target damage buff. Ground current damage reduced. What was ground current? Ground current. Oh, so they're just nerfing the AoE and increasing the single target a little bit. Here's some juice though. Slayer strike damage increased by 100%. Mark for execution and increases executes damage by 15% per stack was 10. Show No Mercy increased the execute critical strike chance and damaged by 15% was 10. So just buffing the shit out of execute with the execute spec. One thing to note as well is because Fury just hits more, and I don't know if we'll be using Powerful Enrage or the haste buff in the War Within itself. I'm not sure of the damage differences, but I do believe that Slayer strikes are hasted, so we actually get more Slayer strikes as Fury compared to Arms. So a little bit of a Fury buff there. Overwhelming Blades now stacks to 12, was 10. This is just overall buff. Fierce Follow Through, increase the next Mortal Striker Blood Source by 20%, was 10%, so just double on this talent here. So this is so if Mortal Strike crits, the next one does more damage. Or if Bloodstream crits, the next one does more damage, which is pretty good. That's very good. So right now, Fury players are happy, happy, happy. Opportunist increased the critical strike damage and chance of overpowering Rage Wheel by 30%, was 10 and 15 respectively. So this thing got a massive increase for overpower Raging Blow, which was Opportunist here. And that's when the cooldown resets. The one problem I have with this is, once again, is we're putting a lot of the power of the class in the hero talents, which means that while you already see the overpowered damage nerf here, it feels we're getting like these buttons are being nerfed because of how strong they are in here, which I mean, I guess it's kind of the point where they have tuning knobs inside Colossus and Slayer and Mountain Thane. But the nerfs are pretty substantial. These are obviously a buff to Slayer Fury, obviously. Slayer's Malice increased the damage dealt by overpowering Raging Blow by 30%, was 20. So Raging Blow is going to do a ton of damage, especially with the bonus damage you get from Reckless Abandon. It is good. Crushing Blow is going to do a lot of damage, man. It's going to do a lot of damage. It's also going to make something like Wrath and Fury a bit more wanted, because if you have improved and Wrath and Fury, the resets are going to make Crushing Blow do way more damage. So seems pretty good, seems pretty good. But Slayer Fury certainly has a good amount of buffs here just for how they're changing the hero talents. Arms. Mortal strike damage decreased by 15% and overpowered damage decreased by 20%. Oof. After the buffs they did to arms, it was performing pretty well. And these nerfs on top of the Colossus nerfs are bringing them in line. So this is technically a 20. If you're playing Colossus, this is a 20% damage nerf to Mortal Strike. And Overpower's damage is also nerfed by 20%. One thing that is important to note about Overpower is Overpower also buffs the damage of Dreadnought. So I wonder if there was... excuse me. So I wonder if they did have issues with too much AoE damage through Overpower again. So we'll see. But that's pretty significant damage nerf to arms. But protection, though, what the fuck? Like, what? Like, I don't even play prot. Melee attack and all ability damage increased by 30%. Revenge damage by 25%. Execute damage by 50%. Devastator by 25. Shield charge by 25. Ravager damage. I haven't looked at the other tanks, so it's possible that they buffed the other tank's damage, especially considering potential threat issues, right? But 30%'s a lot, man. That's a lot, and on top of the Colossus buffs they were getting, where their Demolish is going to do double damage. Tides of Battle now does 10% per stack instead of 5. That's actually a lot. So if we look at prot, that's one thing I do know. So we look at prot, Tides of Battle is it increases the damage of your revenge by 5% per stack, but this goes to 10. So your revenge is going to be doing 100% bonus damage from Colossal Might stacks from this talent alone. That's a lot of AoE damage. Prot stonks up. Yeah, that's kind of it. Definitely, if you're a Fury enjoyer, you're looking at arms after that last buff and mythic testing going. But after these nerfs, this is just it just feels like way more in Fury Slayer's wheelhouse. Not wheelhouse, it's wrong. Fury Slayer got buffed quite a bit with just through buffing these, which it does buff Slayer arms as well. But it really feels like the main benefit here is going to be really Fury. Especially considering the arms nerfs that we just got. So I'm not sure where exactly we're sitting in terms of DPS numbers, but if you're a Fury enjoyer, you're definitely happy. Although, depending on how big these prot changes are, if you're a DPS warrior enjoyer, be on the lookout, because maybe we're not even in the raid. Who knows? I don't know what the tank damage look like and the raid buff situation looks like. But warrior is doing decent damage for the melee slot. But I mean, if they keep buffing prot like this, who knows? Maybe they just bring a prot warrior instead of a DPS warrior this tier. Who knows? Because they could just buff it more. You never know. Other small things that I think are nice is that the last two bosses now drop essentially 15 heroic and 15 aspect crests, which means that you'll be able to get a lot more of those crests from doing the bosses. Let's say, I think with the, depending on what the skip is, you might be able to get most of the crests you get for the week from just doing like a heroic skip too, which is going to be pretty nice. But getting aspect level crests from those last two bosses and heroic is going to be very, very nice. And it's going to be good for the whole player base. That means you don't have to essentially permafarm only +9s to get your crests, which is good. And our gear is going to be extended way, way more, considering we have now 6 levels of Myth Track gear. The only problem I have with this is maybe you'll do like one guy and another alt, and then you can maybe keep up those two, but they still haven't buffed your they still really haven't buffed the acquisition of crests. So if you start a guy and you want to like maybe make a specific Mythic Plus alt kind of later, you're going to have to play a lot with how much they're increasing the amount of myth tracks there are to really get your guy to where it needs to be to do those higher level keys. But anyway, that's what we're looking at. That's what we saw. And yeah, as a Fury enjoyer, I am hoping this makes arms not the prog spec, but even with these nerfs, who fucking knows? We'll have to wait for the robot to tell us what the damage do. Anyway, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.